Hey out there in YouTube land, is Kuda Slayer. Once again, there's another episode of Confessions of a DSL Technician, where I basically talk about my experiences as a former DSL technician many years ago, working for a certain, how should I say, evil empire telephone company, and kind of some of the things that I often had to deal with in resolving a lot of customers' issues. Today is going to be kind of a bit of a deep dive into a fairly complicated issue, and oftentimes uh, when this subject gets involved, it's a very complicated and lengthy method of trying to get things fixed, and try to explain how and why some of these things do happen. First off is the subject of the CSDR, or the Customer Service Detail Record. Um, Basically, this is a document, quote unquote, that lays out pretty much the how and what's involved in providing a customer service. It generally what it will list is like the customer's telephone number, the associated circuit IDs, any virtual mapping, the addresses and identifiers of any particular physical facilities or plants that provide the service, any billing codes. It's basically kind of the ultimate authority when there's any kind of question on, what's involved with the customer service, and what we need to look at to either work with or replace or whatever when there's a problem. It's kind of a side note. As a customer, you have a right to actually look at this document. This is something not too many people know about. To the average lay person, might be kind of boring. If you're kind of one of these assessive types, you might want to look at it or whatever. But one particular use that a customer actually want a copy of this document is if you're planning on changing your services over to like voice over IP. If whatever vendor you're going to be dealing with, they oftentimes will ask you to get a copy of this, and so they can plan out how they're going to convert your services over. To get this document, I oftentimes would recommend calling the weather number for the sales or services department, and kind of go through the phone tree as if you're going to add or change your services. Usually those people are kind of quicker and understand what you're looking for, and help you get that. It usually takes about maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get it, even if you have it emailed to you. I don't know why there's kind of internal process that just seems to take a while for it to happen, but that's usually the best department to go to. And so anyway, like I said, this document is basically the ultimate authority and blueprint of what is involved in a customer's being provided service. Now, this document is kind of maintained and controlled by a series of orders that can be issued by different departments. Usually it's the sales department that does most of the changes, but sometimes you might have someone else be involved to do some of the work. The first type of order that starts the whole thing is the in order or the new order. Some of these letters are going to be kind of fairly obvious, at some point. But the new order is what sets everything up. It lays the foundation for everything. When a customer calls in and speaks to a sales agent, they get pick a number out of the pool, and get their addresses and what services and additional services they'll want with their new line, and this end order is sent out, and basically it propagates and is dispersed amongst the various different departments that are going to be involved. And this end order will set the foundation. Start the records, lay out the circuit. Identify the circuit ID, and then tells everyone, okay, we need to wire this here, wire this, whatnot. And if there's like any other services that are going to be involved, like if the customer, starts a whole new phone line, and then they want to, at the same time, say they want to have DSL on this line, first we'll need to have the end order, and then the DSL, because the DSL cannot exist without it being attached to some kind of phone number. And the DSL is eventually added after the end order is completed with a C order, which adds all the services that couldn't be added from the beginning because there's no foundation to work off of. And C orders, before I go by that, C means for change. Again, if you haven't quite guessed that yet. Let's see, there's a R order, which is for records. Say if you've been married to your spouse for many years or however long, and unfortunately one day they die, if services is in their name, anytime you report trouble or anything, their name becomes pulled from the records and put on the trouble ticket, and that's a lot of times why, if you have a problem, you report it, you'll get a technician like me calling and asking for them, and I can't begin to count how many times I've gotten yelled at a mourning former spouse / widow, when I had no idea, and I'm just trying to fix things and didn't mean to open up that can of worms. But basically, normally to change the name on the accounts and everything, it requires a R order. You should be able to get that get that issued by any sales rep, especially if you're, like I said, go through the call tree and kind of act like you're going to change or add new services. I don't know why it seems like this thing is kind of so hard to do, because I've heard customers complain about it often. On my part, I often try to manually change it myself on any trouble tickets I'm working with, but that seems to always be kind of a big problem that I encountered fairly often, and I don't know why. Another type of order I've seen, I don't really remember what they were used for, but it's an A order. It's I think it's a little bit more deeper internal workings than most of the departments. I'm not entirely sure what it was, but I do remember seeing a couple. Then another order that's another type of order that's often seen is the T and Fs. This is when you are going to move. The T is for to, which is the new location, while the F is from, which describes everything that's going to be, if it was at the original location, and then what's going to be, spell everything out, what's going to be moved to the new location. And then the last order is D, which, if you haven't quite guessed yet by now, D is for disconnect. This basically kind of goes through and tells everybody, okay, we're going to need to pull the wire here, pull the wire there, erase these records, and start over on this particular number. If it's if it's the customer's moving the number from one service to another, it's usually a disconnect and a new order from the other company. But basically, that's kind of how the CSDR is created and maintained. Now, let's see, during the 90s, I remember this was kind of a thing during the early 2000s. There was this thing called cramming and slamming. Kind of going on a side note here. Cramming, this is all involved with what happens with the CSDR sometimes. Cramming is when you, and usually it's sometimes it can be an unethical sales agent or some other third party that gets involved and adds additional services to your line. It could be almost anything like equipment protection plans, long distance. I've seen all kinds of different things that have happened, and usually, if you don't pay attention to your phone bill, these things can kind of linger for a long time until you look at your bill and it's like, why is my bill so high? And you start looking at some of the itemized the bill listings, and you start seeing these other kind of weird or things you don't remember asking for. That's how a lot of these things happen. And sometimes it's like if you let's see, every now and then, and this kind of is going to start going into slamming as a follow-up. But basically, this cramming can also happen if you receive a strange phone call. Someone soliciting to you. They may not really identify who they are, or there were all kinds of ethical ways of they did this, but they oftentimes would prey on people who weren't paying attention, and they will talk to you. Well, we can save you this and this and this, and what may result is additional cramming, which is maybe just charges for something that may not even exist. It'd just be like a little code they'll slip in onto your CSDR and tells you, okay, big telco in the sky, we want this money collected on this and such. Now, slamming is kind of a similar one, but it's a little bit more nefarious and more deeper. Basically, it's when someone calls in and talks to you about, well, we can save you so much on your phone bill, and basically what they'll do is they'll take, no matter who you have currently as a service provider, they'll issue orders. They'll change you moving from your original service provider to whatever company that they're working for, and this is a oftentimes very difficult process to reverse, if at all possible. In many cases, there's not really much that one can do if a customer gets caught up in something like this. Like this is kind of one reason why, if you ever get a strange phone call, or maybe if you even go to a weird website, if it starts asking you for like your telephone number, if they don't have caller ID or something, and they start asking you all kinds of strange questions, immediately do not say yes to anything, because one, the various things they often would, and not very unethical things they would do, is claim they're on a recorded line, and sometimes they might actually be on a recorded line. And if you say yes to anything, they kind of take this carte blanche to do whatever they want to do, and pretty much issue whatever orders they want to change your services over to their side or whatever. And when customers realize this or find out about this, um, there's almost nothing anyone can do. And the reason why these kind of things can happen is because when in doubt, you can almost always blame the government for bringing these circumstances around, because especially in the United States, the telecommunication industry is highly, highly regulated, and it's to the point that if some some department or whoever on the telco side, they see an order come down to shoot, and they read it and it says, do such and such. Um, Even though they're, your preferred service provider, they really have no grounds or authority to even double check with you. Like, they can't, even though you may think that'd be good customer service to do, they really cannot, because the regulations involved. They cannot just call you up and say, are you really sure you want to do this? Because we've seen this happen before. We're looking at these things, and there's some very sketchy details about this. Are you really sure? And, unfortunately, they had to kind of blindly follow it when they get such orders. Like, well, they want to change services? Okay. Clip, clip, clip. And that is, when it happens, it's an absolute nightmare to deal with. Anyway, kind of circling back to CSDR, when you get involved working inside the telecommunications field, there's a concept that's bantered about a lot called demarcation. Basically, it's they go through and draw these border lines between different groups or departments or other companies or entities that describe, okay, you're responsible for everything up to this point, and then after that is such and such parties. Or a lot of times these lines of demarcation describe who you actually can talk to in a situation. It's from a customer's perspective, in your typical house, especially most modern ones, there's a little box on the outside your home called the DMARC. Even though the term DMARC is DMARC, it's even though it's the acronym, what it really is a shortened form of demarcation. And basically, it says right there, everything up to that box outside to the outside world, the phone company is responsible for. But everything from that box to inside your home, that's all your responsibility. Or kind of same way it could be for like apartments and such. Everything up to the outside of the apartment is responsible for the phone company. But when you get inside, there's often like a wiring room or some other aspect of that where the apartment managers are responsible. And if they want, have the phone company call in and prove if there's a problem, where if it's in the apartment wiring, or they only want to prove it till it's from the outside world to up to here. A lot of times there's a lot of argument about where that occurs, but from my perspective, when I was a DSL technician, there was a concept called line share, and uh, and this often was a very major part of where I often had to deal with the CSDR. And that's basically line share is a set of codes which says that that the company, the department that I worked for, had permission to have this DSL circuit on this particular number / circuit, because the DSL actually rides on the phone cable pairs, and it was, they shared information on, like, okay, we have our circuit on this circuit, and we need billing for this and authority for that. And a lot of times customers, if they get accidentally disconnected because something happened with that line share, this is it's like I started in 2000, and I think it was about 2001, possibly 2, is when this really became a serious issue. And because it was right around the beginning of 2000 when the phone company started deploying DSL and providing it to customers, and there was a lot of growing pains and all kinds of. It was unfortunate. It was a learning experience that often impacted a lot of customers, and a lot of times the customers, not all the time, but it happened fairly often, especially in the early days with the line share portion of the CSDR was accidentally taken off or changed. This can happen. A lot of times when I saw it, it was a mistake. Like I said, in the very early days when they started enforcing this part, when a sales agent or any other order writer was dealing with with the issuing orders, the way the orders are often written is they oftentimes will start off as what the all the details of the CSDR are supposed to look like now before. Then at the very near the end of the order, it's supposed to spell out what the CSDR and everything's supposed to look like then, when, beginning change, before change, after change. And unfortunately, some of these orders writers, I don't want to cast aspersions, but some of them may not have had the proper training. It might have, might have just been some other kind of human error. It happens, and usually it's me, the innocent, young, and not yet broken, beaten down technician who gets to deal with the customer and calling angrily, like, why is my service no longer working? And I have to, as they're screaming in my phone, my ear, I'm looking through, and it's like, oh crap. Well, sir, I think I found the problem. And but the real big problem with when this happened was I have to get a new order issued to put all the information back through the line share to get everything wired back up and working again. And unfortunately, when it comes to orders, it oftentimes takes maybe as long as 3, possibly 5 days to go through. Kind of really depending on if where and when everything's supposed to happen. And so that was oftentimes something I had to deal with that had major impact on a customer, and oftentimes made the customer's experience very, very unbearable. And unfortunately, as the technician working on the problem, oftentimes took the brunt of the abuse to get getting the issue resolved. It's like kind of one of the worst situations I saw when it comes to regards to a customer's DSL service. Um, this was like about 2005, maybe 2006. A particular other phone company um, in the territory that I covered um, decided they no longer wanted to provide local services, and so they're going to pull out. And prior to all this happening, they gave customers options. Okay, do you want to go with so and so, or you want to go with another choice? Um, and then what they did was they issued the order from their side. They issued orders to change customer service from their equipment over to the new provider equipment, like in my case, Evil Empire Phone Company. Um, and everything was all good. The Evil Empire got their orders and said, okay, we're setting these customers up now as our customers, and some want DSL from us as well. So we'll issue orders to, once the N orders go through and establish everything, we'll issue the C orders and have the DSL to them, and hopefully they'll all be happy at that point. But in this case, something happened which I don't think many of us ever seen before, and especially not in this kind of large scale, because we're talking about thousands of customers all at once this happening to. And as the customers are settling in as brand new Evil Empire customers, some obscure automatic system on the other company's side, for some whatever reason, issued C orders from their perspective to come over and change customer from Evil Empire services for DSL over to their DSL services. And this was something we had never seen up to that point before, not in that kind of scale. There's minor occurrences, but nothing like this. Even the other DSL provider had no idea or understanding why this happened, and it was a major ordeal to get everything corrected. I was dealing with one of the customers who had this problem, and before we finally took everything over, and another department took everything over and kind of handled it all as one big issue all in one go. I had to walk this customer through, and it took me about 3 hours to get everything sorted out with the other company, which I couldn't really talk to, but because the customer didn't understand and no other people involved, I had to break some regulations and just look, this customer's not happy. You made him not happy. You fix the damn problem, because I don't have the authority. You broke this. You fix it. And I had to hold the customer's hand while they're screaming at me and screaming at them. And actually, it's kind of interesting, because that was one of my 3 or 4 attaboy letters I got over my several years that I worked as a DSL technician. But that was a major issue with the CSDR and how it can affect the customer in particular. But anyway, hopefully you found this rambling kind of interesting. If you have any further questions, leave a comment down below, hit like, certainly hit the subscribe button. But yeah, that's some of the joys I had on the job, especially in dealing with the customer service detail record, and how it oftentimes impacted customers and their services. So anyway, signing off, and see you next time. Bye.